Hello, folks. It's great to see you. Welcome to Business Spotlight. In fact, today we should be calling it Leadership Spotlight. Something I often get asked about is developing leadership in large organizations and also developing influence. And I'm joined today by an absolutely fantastic guest. She'll be with me in a moment. Jhumar Johnson, who's Chief of Staff at the Open University, running an enormous organization, and has got a fantastic personal brand as well. So I'll be putting to questions to Jhumar today around developing leadership, developing influence in a large organization, and developing her personal brand. Please welcome, folks, Jhumar. It's great to see you. Welcome to Business Spotlight. Thank you for joining today.
Good morning, Mark. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome, Jhumar. You're running a very large organization. I've got quite a few questions for you, and I'm really intrigued to hear all about your journey. From the outset, why don't you just kind of give the viewers a bit of a feeling in terms of the scale and the scope of what being Chief of Staff of the Open University is all about?
Thank you. I wish I could take credit for running the Open University. I'm not even sure I want to be running the Open University, but there is an incredible group of people that make the institution what it is. I've been at the Open University for coming up to 10 years. Never thought that would be the case. I only came to do a 3-month contract as a consultant because that's what I was doing. My background is in fundraising, so high value major gifts fundraising. That's what I did for about 15 years prior, working in lots of charities, running a consulting agency, and prior to that, moving to this country as a scholarship student myself. Mm-hmm. So I came from India, born and brought up in India, daughter of a Indian naval officer. Thought I needed to get away from home and I needed to get away from my parents. In India, the only legitimate way of doing it other than marriage is education. So I thought, right, I'm going to apply to a university. If I get into this one, then it's meant to be, and I did. So I came to do a postgraduate degree in journalism. Mm-hmm. Did that, ended up working at the university I was studying at. So that's the University of Westminster, helped set up the UK's first very significant scholarships program for students from developing countries. And I think that's where I really got the education bug. I know that my life was changed because somebody put some money in to effectively give me a scholarship. So I feel with the Open University, my life has come full circle. I'm fundraising, making scholarships possible as part of what we're doing, and then working in this incredible institution which is driven by a mission to make education open to all.
Fantastic. We're going to talk about lifelong learning in a moment, and I'm excited to talk to you about that. But before we do that, so that's quite an extraordinary journey that you've been on, Jhumar. What were the skills that you would say that what are the skills that you picked up or were essential to help you along that extraordinary journey?
Oh, goodness me. I think for me, it's always been about people. You need to be authentic, you need to be a good communicator, you need to be open, and you need to be willing to be vulnerable. I used to do a lot of training for fundraisers, and one of the things we used to talk about was the place vulnerability has in building good relationships. You know, in order to get to know somebody, you need to be able to show a little bit of yourself. Sometimes it is a sense of humor. So for me, one of my key skills is being able to have a good laugh at myself and with others. It's also curiosity. So I love meeting people, getting to know their stories. I mean, that's how you and I got, chatting, learning about what is important to them, what has meaning in their lives, what they value. And as a result, really, the rest of the stuff sort of happens anyway. Once you understand what makes someone tick, then you understand really what is it that they might want to invest in, what is it that they might want to do to change the world, all of those sorts of things. So for me, people was always the thing. Now, that's not quite a skill, but within that lies, I think, the skill of building really good relationships. That has stood me in very good stead all through my career and my time at the Open University. I think the other one that often gets missed but talked about quite a lot is this whole piece around communication. How do you show up? What do you stand for? How do you tell your story, your organization's story? as a fundraiser, you're constantly communicating. You have to write well, you have to be able to speak well, you have to convince people to sometimes do things that they might not have thought they would be doing. So all kinds of communications, whether it's your body language, whether it's how you speak, how you write, becomes really important. I think, again, I'm very fortunate. I come from a background where we were taught and encouraged to write and speak. I used to be president of the debating society in college, because basically I can't sing, I can't act, I have no other skills of that kind in the creative industries, but I could talk. And I discovered that because of the debating society. And I think that has really been what has kept me true to what I do today. And I still love all of those things.
Because you're working across quite a diverse group of stakeholders as well, aren't you, internally? You're working with the Vice Chancellor, you're working with some other very senior people, well-known figures, public figures as well. So it's really essential for you to kind of be really visible and to be engaging, communicate, over-communicate with a diverse group of people, I should imagine.
It is. Actually, as Chief of Staff, one of the skills you learn is invisibility. You know, if you're doing your job right, then you're not visible. I came from a space where I was very visible. So you spend a large part of your 20s, 30s, you know, proactively, intentionally building visibility. When do I speak? How do I show up? And then suddenly I found myself in this space 3 years ago when we decided to try this Chief of Staff experiment, having to learn how to be invisible in some ways. This is not about getting credit for everything. This is just about making sure everything gets done. But you're right. I do have the fortune of meeting some incredible people. Some are very famous. A lot are incredibly bright and clever. Sometimes I have to pretend to be some of them, because as a fundraiser, for example, you have to kind of sell what it is that they're doing before you walk them into the room. So there are days where you go from, you know, I'm a policy expert in the morning, a classicist in the afternoon, and later in the evening, you're kind of talking about AI and what's going on with ChatGPT. Actually, I'm not an expert in any of those things. So the word that you used partly was confidence. You sort of need to know, what you don't know, and when you sort of pull other people in. So you're right. I meet incredible people. The OU is full of them. The OU is surrounded by them. And in my networks, very deliberately, there are people who are way cleverer than I am, way more knowledgeable than I am. And it's great spending time with people like that.
I love that idea. I heard a phrase the other day. Somebody talked to me and mentioned the phrase leading from the back. And actually something you said is really insightful around leadership, which is you don't have to know everything about everything. You just have to know the right questions. You need to ask the right questions in the right way to the right people to get the outcome and the knowledge that you want, right?
Absolutely. I mean, look, I work in an organization that is built on lifelong learning. So I don't think we could ever say we know it all. We don't. We're all learning on a daily basis. So 100% agree with what you just said about needing to know the right questions to ask, but also accepting that you don't know it all. So I have absolutely no problems in being the most ignorant or the newest to a subject in a room. What I do know I'm particularly skilled at is deploying common sense. And also being able to translate complicated information into simple things. So I have absolutely no problems in a room full of people saying, could you just explain that to me in basic ABC? I did that yesterday. We were at a care home. We need to move my mother-in-law into a care home, unfortunately. And the lady who runs it started talking about all these various care packages. But she was speaking as if I understood everything. I didn't have a clue what some of those things meant. And of course, she was speaking with industry jargon. So I, at one point, had to say there were 3 others in the room who were listening. And I thought, well, it sounds like I feel like I'm the only person in the room really not understanding what she is saying. And I thought, I'm just going to have to say to her, could you just repeat all of that, but as if I'm a 10-year-old? Explain to me the basics of what is going on here. How do these packages get built? I think so many times people forget that your story, no matter what that story is, whether it's about a care package or whether it's about what is going on in an organization, the strategic change, it has to be communicated in a way that is right for the audience. And you cannot make the assumption that the audience is in the same place as you are.
Yes.
So you have to sort of start with the basics. So I love being quite lazy, actually, in some ways over the years, or maybe having just gained confidence in having done this for such a long time, rather than sort of starting to tell people about the OU as soon as I meet them. I often ask a simple question, you know, what do you know about the Open University? And that gets them talking. That means I have to do a lot less work. They reveal what they know, and I can pick up threads from there.
Let's just build on continuous learning. So I think that's really interesting. And obviously the OU is a learning organization. So tell me, Jhumar, how do you prioritize continuous learning in your organization and your team's professional development, your personal professional development? And what have you found to be most effective in that regard?
How do I prioritize it for myself? Badly.
Okay.
You know, very often I'm my own last priority, really. But I do recognize that learning is really important for the role that I do. And I say badly, but then I also realize in the same breath that actually I'm learning every day. Every report that lands on my desk, everything that I have to read, the prep that I have to do, I'm learning because I'm reading about subject matter that are not my areas of. So you're learning constantly. Even the conversation we're having, you're triggering things in my mind. And that's why I said, you know, it's lifelong learning, it's continuous learning. It's I have a 10-year-old, and I'm trying to get him to keep his love for learning, because he's getting to the stage where he doesn't want to do homework and he doesn't want to be studying. He would much rather be playing. Of course, he's 10. And I'm trying to get him to sort of really understand that life is all about learning. Everything that he is doing is about learning. Even when he's playing, he is learning. And getting him to understand that learning isn't equated with homework. Learning is equated with joy and with fun and with wonder. And I try to keep that. So for me, that is really important. And then there are specific things that you can do. I've been mentoring for a long time. I was mentored. I think that was probably the best thing that's happened to me formally and informally in my career. So I try to do as much of that as I can do for others, but I also very actively look for those that could help me. And sometimes it's one conversation, sometimes it might be a longer relationship. Similarly, moving from mentoring into the coaching space, if I really need to get my head around something and make some critical decisions, I think I've got to a point now where conferences don't quite do it for me. They provide a different space and play a very different role now in the learning space. I will go to a coach to be able to talk things through and for somebody to ask those insightful questions. I'm a big fan of coaching when it comes to development of my team as well. So almost all of my team at some point will be offered coaching. They obviously all get to go to subject-specific conferences and things like that. We also let them drive. So with our annual appraisal conversations, we let them drive what they think their development might look like with regards to where they want to take their career. We help shape those conversations. And of course, we have things like budgets, and everybody gets a fair chance to do all of those sorts of things. But there comes a point in everyone's career where I think conferences and training courses aren't quite everything. You need bespoke attention. And that's where coaching or mentoring become our choice. The organization, I mean, yes, it's a learning organization, and you would think that, of course, therefore, there is a lot of emphasis. Some of it is mandatory. Yes, we all have to do our health and safety training. I'll get a big, big tick for being able to say that in public by our head of health and safety. But there are other things that are optional, you know, thinking about strategic change or thinking about systems thinking. So we have, for example, a professional services leadership academy that was started about coming up to 2 years now. And again, everybody who's on the professional services side in the university has access to some amazing content in there. It's content that you can either learn on your own or you can go through training. So I try to keep it as varied as possible, but as relevant to the time and moment in the career as possible.
Fantastic. That's some really great nuggets there. So leading as a coach is a really big takeaway. And also, what's that great phrase? If you're not learning, you're going backwards because other people are going past you, right? So
If you're
that's
not
fascinating.
learning, you're dead.
Yeah. I'll take that as a
Simple as.
soundbite. If you're not learning, you're dead. There we go, folks. There's the golden nugget. So tell me, I'm fascinated by this, Jhumar. So as the chief of staff, how do you create and maintain influence in such a large organization? And what's your advice to other leaders?
I think for me, and this might not be true for everybody, but I suspect for all the really good ones it is, not suggesting I'm really good either. There is something about being consistent and being true. Authenticity is an overused word, I think, in some ways, but it is absolutely the right word. There isn't a better one, really. I show up in a manner that is very consistent, actually quite predictable in many ways, whether it's my sense of humor, whether it's my curiosity, whether it's the fact that, yes, I will ask 3 questions to want to understand things. I think consistency and authenticity sort of go hand in hand. Honesty at all times. I most certainly have a reputation for being direct. Direct, but always diplomatic, always tactful. My dad taught me, it's what Michelle Obama, I like to say, stole from him about, when they go low, you go high. But he always taught me about integrity. No matter what happens, leave the room with your integrity intact and leave the room so that others are feeling better, not worse. And I've always sort of held on to that. So, of course, my role does very often involve questioning things and sometimes steering things in directions that they need to go in but might not be going in. But I always try to do it in a way where I think the other person should leave with their respect intact and I should leave with my integrity intact.
Fantastic. So that really feeds in. I mean, you have a very strong personal brand. So that must really feed in. I mean, you must have been consciously and intentionally thought about how you were developing your personal brand. And those were important components towards it, I should imagine.
I think it's the benefit of hindsight and being older. I don't think in my 20s I was thinking of personal brand.
Okay.
I recently, a few years ago, went to India to teach about personal branding to a group of 18 to 20-year-olds. And of course, when you talk about personal brand, you're now talking to a group of individuals who have social media around them, who can speak and communicate and voice opinion in a way that in my generation, we didn't have access to those tools. If I had an opinion, it was 3 people hearing it, and that was that. Now, of course, they have all these platforms to say what they want to. One of the things we were talking about was, intent and communication and the legacy of intent and communication now. So what happens when recruiters look for individuals, for example? What kind of checks do they do? How easy is it to find your views, your political alliances, how you party, what happens, all of those sorts of things, and getting them to become more conscious. This is not about what is right or what is wrong, or shaping individuals to all become the same, but it is about becoming much more conscious about what are you putting out there that will have a life and will have repercussions and consequences. And back to my point about consistency, I think what I did learn, certainly in my 30s, as I started becoming more senior, was that consistency was what created the reputation, really. You consistently deliver, your behavior, your attitudes become well known. So for example, when we were doing the chief of staff thing, so when my vice chancellor joined the university and we talked about doing this chief of staff experiment, there was a part of me that was worried because you'd suddenly be showing up in a room as the eyes and ears of the vice chancellor. And at no point did he or I want this to become about eyes and ears. We didn't want people to feel that if I showed up, it would be because I was spying or because he didn't think that somebody was doing the job right. I most certainly didn't want to develop that kind of a reputation. And I think what really helped and has helped this experiment work is that I already had a reputation. And that reputation didn't have any of those connotations attached to them. They were about being collegiate. They were about people knew exactly who I was, what I did, how I delivered, how I functioned. And that has really helped cement this role into a very positive space. When I turn up in a room, people don't go running, thankfully, I think.
Fantastic. Jhumar, it's been absolutely brilliant to meet you. Thank you so much for joining today. How can people get in contact with you if they'd like to follow up with the OU?
LinkedIn is the best way. There's only one of me. You can see my name on the screen. It's very easy to find me. And I'm very happy to have a chat if there's anything that I've said that has sparked a thought. And if you haven't liked something I've said, just be kind when you give me feedback.
Jhumar, it's been brilliant to see you. Thank you so much for joining today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome. Folks, if you'd like to come and join us on our Business Spotlight, then please hit apply below on this post. Get in touch. We'll follow up with you, and we'll be delighted to interview you and to showcase you and your business, your skills and your talents. Until next time, thank you for joining. Bye for now.